Okay, so we are doing something a little bit unusual today. We're not looking for a segue into the episode. For everyone that is listening to us right now, there's something a little bit special about today. We haven't quite hit 100 episodes or anything like that, which would be a normal milestone that we would look for, and we're still going to look for that as well here. But this is, like, if you're listening to this now, the last recording session in our old studio, in the house that Jen and I have, right? After today, the studio will go bye-bye, and we'll eventually get a new studio when the house is rebuilt. But it's something special. We've spent so much time in this studio recording Reflex Save for everyone else. It kind of feels a bit nostalgic to, have our final one here. Now, just to be very clear, this isn't the final episode, or even the final set of episodes. We've still got some more content to come, but this is the last time it'll be from here, with this sound equipment, in this room, with what we've put into making this podcast sound the way it has. So I wanted to do something a little bit special in celebration, as we do these recordings. We're not going to do the normal lead in and lead out that we have been doing, and I love doing those, by the way. We're going to just record a big chunk of session, and we're going to break it up a bit so that we've got that content out and just really enjoy being here in this room. And I thought what I would also do is we would just have a bit of a round table in this episode to talk about the characters that we have made, the story we've been telling away, the module we've been playing, the game we've been playing, and some of the fun stuff we've been doing. So I've gathered everyone here today. It is our normal recording day, but I've still gathered everyone here today to have a chat about that. So first things first, how are you all feeling as the last recording session in this studio?
I'm really glad that it's still winter because the air conditioning has been taken down.
Yes.
We strategically timed the demolition to be around the winter-springtime.
Yeah.
I think that this episode will probably come out close to summer, but yeah, that's a good point. I didn't realize we would have to take the air conditioners out just before, completely out, because they have to be degassed and all this kind of stuff. I was talking to an electrician. So yeah, we've just now... It's funny because this room didn't have air conditioning in it when we first set up the studio. We had to get this tiny little unit, this little indoor unit that you would plug to the outside, and you'd run it, and it was like a jet engine for 10 minutes just to cool the room down.
I remember that thing.
I remember in summer we had to record for half an hour, stop, cool the room down, and then record it again. Mm-hmm. Oh my god.
And before that, we were in the living room.
Yeah.
And that's why the audio, most of the reason
sucked.
the audio sounded garbage.
Well, we've had comments about that, because we've had a warning put on for the first... So it's the first 5 episodes, I think, we're in the...
Correct, yeah.
And what we would do is, because we were looking for a place where we could record, and in the end we just thought, fuck it, we'll just record at our house. It's the easiest thing. And we would have everyone come to our house, clear out the all the furniture, push it all back, and then bring these trestle tables in from outside, set up all the audio, test everything, and it was just a massive overhead. So, yeah, from episode 5, we decided to clear out my study, and that's where we've been recording ever since. That's the studio. But the first 5 episodes, we've had comments that the audio is not as bad as we think. And Jen and I did a DVD listen to... It's on YouTube at the moment when we were doing an affiliate celebration stream. And the audio quality is a lot better than you expect, actually. We did a pretty good job trying to nail that, decent quality out the gate, I think.
Speaking of early days of recording, I remember when we were testing out various venues. I remember when we actually went into the city. I think we hired out that conference room and did a recording in there in King George Square.
Yep.
At the library.
Yeah, the city public library.
Yeah.
That was on my birthday.
That was.
Wow.
Actually.
There you go.
Best birthday present.
And you made cake, Jen.
I did make
She
cake.
made some little Rice Krispie stuff with chocolate, like a fudge, I guess.
Yeah, because I didn't want it to get too messy.
Are they ICMs, basically?
LCM?
LCMs.
I don't know, maybe I'm thinking ICB.
What do you mean putting in your LCMs, mate?
But gourmet.
But gourmet, yeah, very gourmet. Yeah, I remember that library. We only had a couple ones because we were testing out the whole, how it would work. Do you remember the mod, the little short module we were playing?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember feeling very uncomfortable and being very much outside my comfort zone.
Because for
I
you
remember
guys, it was your second or third time playing, I think?
Yeah, still quite new. Yeah.
So one of the things that I retroactively realized about that is that I think it's that's funny that you set that adventure on a Netheril city, because in this adventure module at the end of it there is another Netheril city waiting for us potentially.
Zimma. That's on purpose.
I figured. I'm not saying it was a coincidence. I'm saying that that's something that you did intentionally.
Get the red string and the corkboards out. You can really... No, that was an accident. Yeah, that just
It's definitely an accident.
But yeah, it was... We never got to finish that module.
Yeah, it seemed cool. Time travel, shifting between future and the past.
Was that mansion that had a bunch of doors in the ballroom?
Yeah.
That's right.
I think the word used was manse, because it was supposed to be a flying castle.
Of course, yeah, that's what I will name my flying castle, Manse.
And then
Classic Mance.
And then each room had different time periods because the castle was in time flux and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wipe that from my memory.
Yeah.
I just can't remember.
We only played a few test sessions. We've got the recording still from that
have
somewhere.
the recording.
But we can't release it because we hadn't finished it. So, I don't know, maybe Patreon. I can't say that if we ever get a Patreon.
Bonus content.
Boner content.
Listen to them struggle. For your own amusement.
We decided not to record there because it was too echoey and the air cons were making too much noises, so we just didn't end up doing that.
Yeah, it was very echoey. I remember that.
Yeah.
Plus, it would have been getting into the city every week.
That was the other thing.
That too.
Well, that wasn't so much an issue for me because I'm already in the city every week.
Yeah.
But everyone else is coming from 4 different directions.
And the parking in the city as well.
Callan very graciously offered to drive me home after every recording because I have to come all the way out to his place now.
Yeah. That's why you need to learn how to ride a motorbike.
It's just that simple.
It's that ezy.
Yeah.
Actually,
Just
out
hug
of
it.
all the things you could learn to do, because I know you just haven't had a lot of time to get your car license.
Scoots.
Learning to ride a motorbike is probably best because they do actual sessions you can pay and do. So there's not as much of an onus on having to get someone to drive you around. when you're
Yeah.
learning.
You do need your car license before getting a
Really?
motorbike
But
license.
is it just your L's though?
No, you need an open car license for at least a year.
No, you can get your P's because that lady had
You can be on a
I'm-
list, yeah.
I was just never in a position to get lessons from anybody, and I could probably start getting lessons now because I'm in a position to pay for them. But there was a big chunk of life where it was just there is no car and there is nobody to teach me. So
Yeah. If you don't have your own car, you have to fork out a lot for lessons.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays when you need to rack up those logbook hours.
I don't need to do that because I'm over 30.
Oh.
You're over
Nice.
25.
Over 25. Thank you.
You're an
So-
adult.
Both. How about that?
Yeah.
Getting back to the topic at hand, that does, though, still talk to just the challenges of making sure everyone can get to the same place at the same time as well.
I do remember it was quite hard to get even home for one of the recording sessions. I think it was episode 4 or 5 because it was torrential rain and I nearly got T-boned and you guys took quite a while to get to our place because it was near flooding weather and I don't know if you can actually hear the rain. I think Andy probably did a really good job at leveling it
I
and
think you
balancing
can
it
still
out.
hear it, though. Yeah.
But that was probably a really hard session to get to.
Yeah. It seems to me at least, a lot of earlier sessions seem to have really bad weather. It
Yeah.
seems like the weather's kind of been pretty good the second half. I don't know if
So.
that's just memory or not. But
That might be a bit of memory. There's definitely a recent session. When I say recent, within the last, say, 30 episodes, I think it is, where it just poured down rain outside. You can actually hear it in the background,
I mean,
even over the music.
I know what you're talking about, but recent is 6 months ago.
That's what I mean, but compared to the first 70 episodes.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I think you're right. It's funny that we've done there's some, I don't know how many people catch it, but every so often you hear sirens in the background or the trucks going by from the road.
The Icewind Dale Sirens.
The Icewind Dale sirens, yeah. But generally we try and keep those out.
The sound of perpetual twilight.
Oh, well, that leads me into one of my first questions then. for the campaign that we've been running, and like this session, I find with D&D sessions, like even if you're playing with the same player group, each session is unique in its own way. So one of the things I wanted to ask you guys, like, what's your favorite running joke in this campaign so far?
It's definitely Horatio not being able to remember people's
Yeah,
names.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the same thing. How about it? It's crazy.
I really do like the perpetual dawn dusk thing because it happened really early on and I messed up.
It's stuck around.
And it's stuck around so much.
Perpetuity, yeah.
Yep. That's true. But like, there's a few running jokes that we've got though in those particular. Like,
I think Wodun's lying sticks with me
yes.
quite a bit.
And you tell him not to lie.
Well, yeah, because I guess me as a player doesn't really understand why he lies so much. And I think it's just like a really fun ongoing gag that Andy's committed to.
It's almost like Wodun lying to Jen.
Yeah.
Jen's like, why are you lying?
Stop.
I just look at Jen dead in the eyes every time I lie to an NPC.
He's trained in deception. It'd be such a shame to waste it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I am also trained in persuasion, so there are other ways around it. I just choose the easy way, which is lying.
Yeah.
It does remind me of the ongoing yoga classes as well that Wodun runs. I think I really enjoy those.
We've had a couple of classes recently, but it was a big gap between the last one, sadly.
We were quite busy.
Yeah, we had something going on.
Something about a dragon.
Yeah.
The other thing that I kind of like, and it's really subtle, Tim, is Horatio seemingly coming from this plane of existence that we're sitting in this room in and have popped into the fantasy setting. So he's been isekai'd from somewhere here in the world.
Yeah, sometimes the problem with Horatio is because he doesn't sound very different to me. It's just a little bit different. So sometimes I sort of switch between myself and Horatio, like, without knowing it, and then just things come from my head that...
It gives him a very...
But it sounds like Horatio.
Yeah, it gives him a very fourth wall breaking thing. I actually really enjoy it because you don't do it often, but every so often you'll catch things like Horatio talking about something that he cannot possibly know about. It's really good.
Or does he?
Or does he? Oh my god. Alright, well, how about talking a little bit about the story so far, right? Like, how do you feel the story that we've been telling collectively as a group has been going? And like, what do you like about it? What is there things you dislike about it? Is there things you prefer to change? Or, I don't know, just opening it up for discussion.
I feel like for every new, like, subplot or whatever you want to call it, submission, you know, like the castle, it's like saga, I suppose, or dealing with the dragon, I think coming through each scenario like that, when we start a new one, I think we've refined who our characters are a little bit more, if that makes sense. And I think we start to sort of naturally gravitate towards what our character would do, and we don't have to think about it so much. That's certainly something that I've experienced with Horatio. I think at the start he used to bounce around a lot. I think he started out being very, what's the word, you know, like for a religious person, when they're very, not humble, but they're very...
Pious?
Very pious, yeah. He was very pious to start with. And then he had moments where I tried to like up his energy a lot, and he just
reserved, maybe.
He was.
Yeah.
He still is, but I think there were moments where I tried to sort of up his energy a bit, but I feel like that just wasn't his character, and he sort of naturally tended to kind of, I guess, what you see now. Whether that's also a byproduct of Tim the player's own role-playing abilities, I don't know, or my own personality coming through. Because Horatio is similar to me in a lot of regards. I'm pretty quiet, generally, and reserved, with the odd crazy streak. So Horatio's pretty much me, I suppose.
Both make noises, both talk about cricket sometimes.
Yes, pretty much. It's pretty much me. I feel like... and also, I suppose, the interactions that we have between one another, I think, are a little bit more predictable and consistent now. I think in the past, sometimes we might have a really good D&M you know, and I think another good example was actually that whole little arc where Horacio like went full Callan for a bit, and then he went after Svieta because she went to find that body or something. I can't remember. You and Wodun snuck out.
Yeah, first desecration.
Your first desecration into
together.
a tree.
Yeah.
And Horacio's like, nah, fuck that. Nah. He was like Pete Callan, and he's like, nah, fuck that. That ain't flow with me. And then he cast Ray of Enfeeblement on you.
Yeah.
So
definitely was not expecting it. I thought it was a very good character growth moment or section of his life.
It was sporadic. But yeah, I think also that's kind of that, you know, that leveling out that happens over time. There's like spikes and crazy things that happen with the behavior, but then over time it always seems to tend towards their natural behavior. And I think our characters are more consistent and stable now. Than they have been. We've worked
what
out
they feel like,
what they would do in a given situation, and the more situations that they find themselves in, and you experience them, and you make them react in certain ways. Then when another situation comes along, you might be like, oh yeah, Horacio would do this. Like, you don't have to think about it. So I think there's definitely been a lot more consistency with how we go about doing things. Yeah.
Speaking of consistency, something that defines Wodun, and it's my takeaway from that episode, is that when you went to attack Svieta, Wodun, who I think I've declared was on the Luskin University wrestling team and also the soccer team, tried
also
to
lacrosse team as well.
Maybe he was an athlete at university, regardless.
Yeah.
Tried to tackle a priest who was not himself and failed a grapple check and just fell on his face because I rolled a 3 or something.
Yeah, I do remember.
And I bet he wasn't even looking. I tried to tackle him from behind or something and somehow missed.
I'm really torn about this because on one hand, I think it could be an excellent, there could be an excellent dynamic if one person in the party was actually really strong and athletic, because then there'd be that moment of Wodun who's pretending to be, and then we have this other person who's less charismatic and less charming about it, but actually is big and strong. But then I actually like that we consistently have problems with man, it'd be great if somebody could just bend these bars or lift this heavy thing.
And I love that Wodun's always putting his hand up first, well, clearly I'm the strongest person. Well, clearly I'm the strongest person here, and oh god! I'm so glad I bought that crowbar at the start.
It was pretty clutch, but I like that no one can really overly challenge Wodun in his athleticism
because we all suck at it.
Yeah.
For all you know, he's still the strongest person you know. Yeah, fair enough. Well, what about you, Jen? How do you feel the story has evolved as well?
It's definitely, for me as a player and for Svieta as well, it's definitely helped my confidence and Sveta's confidence, because she was not really sure about these strange men and a kobold that came to my town. And then over time it's just been getting more comfortable and being very predictable of how my character would react. Although it does come across when I listen back to the episodes, I'm why the fuck did I do that? And then later down the track I'm oh yeah, I was trying to make a hand, so that's why I took all the fingers over 40 episodes. But it makes sense in my head, and then I guess people listening to it would be it doesn't make sense. And my character's not actually chaotic, so it does come across as that. But it's just because I have an end goal, but no one else, not even me, can really see it. But yeah, I really enjoyed. I don't regret playing a shifter, but I really don't feel I've utilised the shifting ability to the best of its advantage.
I actually would argue that a lot of the times I see people playing shifters, they play the combat focused ones, right? So they can shift in combat to give them a bit of extra damage or something. I don't often, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't often see a lot of people playing the more, because yours is the perception focused one.
Wisdom focused, yeah.
Yeah, wisdom focused. And I think that you've made good use of that as a utility trait. So a lot of people would say that for purely combat, whereas you've been saving them for well, I need to be able to perceive well in this moment. And she's just going to really focus on what she's doing, so she changes, right? So I actually really like how you've used it, personally.
Yeah, and I agree. I think you have used it quite well thematically, which I think is more important
I think so.
in a recording environment than using it in an optimally ideal way.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. And also the path I wasn't really expecting for almost all our characters. Less so for Carnelian in this respect, but the fact that this is a very religion heavy podcast, it does seem to come up quite a bit and influence our characters, which I find is quite interesting because it's not something that I really was thinking about when I made Svieta. But it's been quite a nice journey to see everyone's characters really bloom in that respect.
You guys turned into
Except Carnelian. I'm so sorry. Curdle Mac doesn't really come up all that often. So.
Carnelian's not a super religious guy.
Yeah.
Curdle Mac's just, the patron deity.
Yeah.
I do like how you've turned into basically a little enclave of priests by the end of the season. Yeah.
A cult, if you will.
Cult. Well, I was going to bring it to, because so for Zimma, is there, what are you about the story so far for you?
So, I initially was oh, maybe I'll just, tie Carnelian into, because I didn't know about the kidnapped by aliens thing, when I went in, I had zero idea, and that was fun. But then when we got to the end of that, I was I gotta, shift gears a little bit. What can Carnelian's, purpose here be? And he kind of turned into this, cultural ambassador of, I'm going to make everybody think better of kobolds. Everybody's going to come away from my adventures being oh, kobolds aren't so bad, actually. And...
less racism.
Well, actually, success basically everywhere but Tourmaline.
That place couldn't be fixed.
To be fair, you guys didn't really give it a good shake. I not that I'm going to go into every part of the module here, but you could have taken the kobolds back to Tourmaline and just advocated for them.
I mean, we could have, but that sounded like a lot of effort.
That was a lot of effort, that's true.
Didn't we have to get back to the ship as well?
Yeah, there was a
We
time.
were on a time limit. I think that's why we decided to
Just send them on their way.
send them on.
Well, we sent them to Caer to the Dragonborn
Yeah.
chief that was there. I can't remember.
Speaker.
Speaker.
What was his name?
Dinner Shat.
No. I'll look the name up later, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Oh, what is his name?
It was...
I've got it here somewhere.
You're talking about the drunk guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a
Krennic Siva?
a silver
Silver is,
a silver dragonborn who we found in the snow, shirtless,
Yeah.
because he's got frost resistance, so he doesn't care about the cold.
That's a nice little detail about him, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was started with T.
Yeah, it's oh god, now I'm not going to be able to continue this goddamn interview without looking
Wait,
at
no,
it.
I think I got it. Conic
Yeah.
Trovis.
Trovis.
Retired adventurer.
Well, I think it's actually not Trovis. It's Torvis. I think I missaid it.
I'm reading the notes that you gave me. It's
No,
Trovis.
There you go.
Yeah.
Although it...
I know I misspelled. I missed it when I did it. Yeah.
Well,
No, when I first introduced him.
whatever Horacio called him, that's what he's called.
Okay.
We had a good adventure up there. We found a bunch of stuff for some people.
Yeah, I mean, it also, I think it was the first, maybe not the first, you have to correct me, Jen, but certainly the first big featuring of the meat birds as well. When you sent word about the arrival of the...
It was, yeah. With
I thought...
kobolds.
No, the meat... Oh, that part too, Tourmaline,
It's
yes.
a cardinal made of meat. Yeah.
Actually, that might be one of also my favourite running jokes is the meat
The meat
birds.
bird, yeah.
Because I remember when Jen did it, and I'm thinking, oh, I know what Jen has read the spell. She's read the spell, looked at the material component being a piece of meat, and her first thought, which was, I'm going to make this thing out of meat because that's why you get the meat, rather than use the meat to attract a bird or something like that. And I'm like, that is such an amazing little bit of logic that I have to keep it in now every time.
That's Svieta logic.
That is
Yeah,
great
love it.
Svieta Gen logic.
oh my god.
Extrapolating from that, I've been very amused that, with 2 exceptions, that basically every single animal has given the druid lip. Every time Svieta tries to talk to an animal, it's always yeah, what do you want?
They do have a lot of attitude. She doesn't have much success in relationships
The only
with
ones
animals.
that have been nice so far have been Dogcliff, obviously not played by Callan,
Thanks, Andrew.
Pointedly not played by me. Yes.
and our narwhal friend, who was great.
The polar bears were sort of nice.
The polar... Yeah, I mean, we did help the polar bears. They
Yeah.
were probably more inclined to be nice to us.
But it didn't even start with, the goats or anything. It was this bloody black cat.
Yeah.
That, vomited on me. I'm like, this is going to go really well for the rest of the series.
This is definitely not setting a precedent.
For me, it's mostly like all birds are more like that for you. The goats were just, in my mind, just terrified.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But we've talked about this. But for me, it's like the meat birds specifically are the ones that are like sassy. So, I don't know. That's just me.
I also like, just in terms of like something that's really prevalent but has not made an appearance for quite a while, except for one episode, is like Beefcliff is still quite a prominent character in the series, even though he's probably like it's probably been in like 30 episodes, and we've got about 90 episodes out.
His absence is a huge part of the podcast.
I'm really hoping that like somehow that wizard turns up on this island and we can fight him, because I would hate for the podcast to end and we just never get Beefcliff back. That's been bugging me for like 60 episodes.
Yeah, we need closure.
Listen, I don't know about you, but the DM does have plans for stuff. He doesn't going to share them with all of you.
He doesn't gonna share.
He doesn't.
He doesn't got to share, right?
It does sound like a bunch of people that know us and have like grudges are turning up specifically now on this island, though. So
that may be cool. That may be on purpose.
I'm so glad we got the Eminem ASMR with you talking.
Yes. Oh, this is a more of a casual format.
I just thought it was like extra content that no one ever really gets.
Makes it so much harder for me to edit.
Do inhaling snacks, literally.
I'm keeping that in. So I guess this anything as well from I know I gave Andy, if there's anything more from Andy as well, because I know you were talking a bit about before that.
Last one.
All right, go on. Thank you.
Oh,
a little
bit.
bonus,
1.5.
bonus shell.
Bonus.
Hell yeah.
Blessed.
You always spat it out when you said that.
Oh, I would have been back to square one.
Yeah. I agree with what Tim was saying about the characters developing really well, and I think they're all great characters. Like, I really like that thing that you just mentioned, Zimma, about how you're like an advocate for the kobolds now. I thought that was like a really good thing that, like, I don't think he had planned from the start. That kind of just developed from the campaign, and Svieta, who's trying to like find herself and her religion, and Horacio's on this like chaotic medical journey that just like he's like, shit, I can banish people. Why start doing that?
Yeah, started out looking for like way to prevent death, ended up just finding a way to banish people, and he seems happy.
Problem no more. Banish.
The banishing, like the high priest of Kellamvor who's come down to like pull rank, and you're just like, no, go away.
Yeah.
One of your best moments.
I do also like a lot of how Wodun's growth is also, and like his story revealed of him like doing these things in Loskin that he can't go back to, and he's got this such brave face, like there's such this upfront character, but there's just so much actually working in and around him. I really enjoy that as well from you, Andy.
He just doesn't know how to handle his emotions.
He's very goofy and very entertaining, but also a really complex and deep character, which I really was not expecting, because...
Oh, thanks, Jen. No, I get it.
As you said that, I'm like that.
No, didn't mean it in like
Guy's
a
got
rude
like
way.
3 brain cells. He's not going to impress anyone here.
Well, no, because I did think he was just going to be this like this
Comic relief.
brainless
Himbo.
like macho man.
I like
Himbo.
Himbo, yeah.
And then
Himbo
it's
is
just like got this
correct.
like extremely tragic backstory. I was like,
Yeah,
that
pretty
episode
awful.
when you and Callan did his backstory, I was like, I can't handle this. It's too sad.
Was that the father of the 2 boys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I quite liked that. I thought it was really well done.
Really
But no, I just
interesting.
thought it was going to be a goofy himbo character.
Yeah, well...
It was just like this dark backstory.
Yeah, he was always meant to be a himbo. That was my like prime thing for him, and then I guess the rest just kind of developed as I went there.
No, I
I
love
remember
it.
when we were doing characters, people, like all of you had to tell me what characters you're going for and sort of their general vibe and like starting positions. And like all that Andy said to me was Gaston.
Yeah, I'm making Gaston,
Yeah.
guys.
It's a great way to like get it to make a start on a character though, because you start with like Gaston, and then when you get going, you like pick up extra details along the way.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of characters start, I think.
It's the thing that always keeps bringing me to like TTRPG specifically is because you have like dice rolls, you have this random element, and then you're reacting to that random element. You can have this idea in your head, but you can never predict like what the outcome is going to be. So it create like it's the best part about D&D. You roll the dice, something amazing happens that you could have never possibly predicted, and then the character changes to to fit the new narrative.
I think you guys have done really well rolling with that as well. I haven't had a lot of times at the table, and this is really a credit to all of you as players. You're accepting a lot of my judgments as a DM, despite that I might not play things the way you wanted to at the time as well. Like I've made judgment calls and we've stuck by them. And to all of your credit, you've rolled with them. The outcome of the dice, what happens in the situation happens in the situation. That is not the same across every D&D table. Sometimes there is conflict between how a GM runs things and how players want things to be run. And sometimes there is like very much people have an idea that, well, this should be the rules for this is how I interpret the rules and this is how. But all of you have been very good at improvising around that and making it your characters' reactions too. So it's a credit to all of you, really.
I think it's like a testament for you as a DM too, is being able to like read us and our characters and what they would do, and then working around that, and then just letting us like basically take over like 80% of an episode, or like helping us grow our characters with certain events that we don't even have to ask you to do.
I love it when you guys take over an episode's a lot less for me to do.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of your decisions, when you were like, when we were sort of first discussing like, like what module we're going to do and all that stuff, you're like, oh no, I really want to do Icewind Dale. It's like this ice setting. There's like nothing there. It's super desolate. There's like no money. There's no magic items. I was like, oh, sounds sick. Yeah, cool. Sounds good for a podcast. But no, it's actually been really good, and I didn't kind of think about it until you just said it, Tim. But there has been like really clearly kind of sagas in what we're doing and like what our characters are doing at the time and how they're behaving and that sort of thing. So it's like it's got a really good sort of story, and I like that we have options to do things. It's not just like a linear like go here, do this, then you unlock this information, and then you can go over here and blah blah blah.
Well, let's talk a bit about that, because that was one of the things I was going to try and go to, was talking about the module itself, right? Like that talks about the structure of the module, and as you said, you weren't super excited about having those kind of things. I felt that it was actually playing to a lot of 5th edition strengths to have like low magic items and sort of the way it progresses. I would say up top, I think this is probably, out of all the modules of 5th edition that I've either run or read through or played through, this is my favorite, this one. Because it opens so, like, it has such a broad opening in that it lets you set it from any different direction, and whilst it sort of all comes together towards the end, the very start of the campaign can be different for like many different groups of people, I feel, depending where you start.
Yeah,
so,
and we literally rolled to see where we started in the town.
We did roll, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was trying to remember if we chose or not.
I think there was like we ended up with like one of 3 choices, because like we did like randomly determine, but I did veto the Duggan's Hole. Because that was one of the options that we were there's like no I can't start there as a kobold.
Understandable.
I don't remember rolling.
Again,
another memory I've just blocked.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember either.
Yeah.
I think I chose Good Mead for a couple of reasons, but I think I might have rolled and then done a sunset.
I don't think you like saw.
I think the narrowing down definitely happened.
Good Mead and went, yes, we're starting here first, because at the start you were like, oh, I've had to make some changes to Good Mead because the starting quest is the Verbig quest, which is technically like something that we had access to at level 1, but not something we would have been able to do at level 1.
Okay, so let's go into a bit of a specific before I go a general thing for your opinion of the module. But on that point, so the way this module is set up is that you have a couple of opening quests that the players can get that are not part of the town quest, right? So it's not technically the Verbig quest, although that is available from the get-go. But these other quests are like, kind of hard. Like what I'd locked myself into when Goodmead was out, like this will be great. Goodmead's a great setting. It's sort of not the big hustle and bustle. It's like a smaller, sleepy town. It's got mead, stuff like that. It's kind of an interesting place. And then I was reading, I'm like, oh, sweet, there's this really interesting open where, the town speaker has died recently. I'll make it a funeral. That's how I'll get the players together. That's how I'll throw them into a party. And then as I was doing the first couple episodes, I realized I'm like, hang on. If I set them here and I do this big thing of a funeral and everything, it's really hard to then left turn and be like, hey guys, go out of the town and go find these like nature spirits. That is like one of the quests that you can do. Or hey, there's this like caravan you need to go find. It's like, why would these people do that? They've just been like in this town that's been assaulted, and they've got this big thing with the speaker. So I had to like do a bit of a custom quest that made you guys feel invested in the town without actually pushing you towards the potentially very deadly verbing encounter early on. And that was the mead run. Because the way I designed it was all those quests are designed to just get you out and exploring some of the other towns. So I'm like, here, do a mead run. This will run you through a couple of towns and you can sort of get the feel of it. Yeah, so that's why I did that.
Carnelian and Knerds ended up being like very key locations for the adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we found, the cult hasn't really, the cult of, well, I know who the cult is of because I have been playing D&D for too long. But there was, the cultists in the Kerr, and then we found the Durgar in the second. Which one's Kerr Conning and which one's Kerr Dinnerval?
Dinnerval's the first one, Conning's the second one.
Yeah, so we found the Durgar because they were the thieves in Kerr Conning. And yeah, there was the cult in the first one, but like because we solved the cult problem, they became like really friendly for us, and we quite often like went back there to rest, or we used that as like the place to fight that dragon.
Yeah, it was pretty clutch doing that. It was also Ked Dinnerval that we found a mystery that still doesn't have an end to it, which is the albino tiefling.
Oh
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, that's right.
But they were really I'm glad we went east of East Haven northeast, rather than go to one of the big cities, because it would be really tempting just to start off in one of the cities, because they
which I think a lot of people do as well.
Yeah, they look like a place where you would like get a bunch of quests from, which theoretically yes, because we heard the whispers in that tavern.
That's how it's interesting the way the game is designed to try and set you onto a couple of those paths. If you don't have a good hook as a DM, it's like get people to hear these rumors that are happening. So when you were in Bryn Chandler, you heard some of those rumors when you were in the tavern there.
Yeah, and like a really persistent. Do you want to touch that fish head?
You guys never touched that fish, and I'm a bit disappointed about that.
No, good.
You'll never know the mystery of the fish.
we have more than enough ghosts, so
That's true.
It's true. Yeah.
So yeah, talking about the module itself, like how are you finding it structured? Because it's very specific in the book in terms of like, here's chapter 1, chapter 2. Like these are the themes. These are what you should try and get your players to do. But ultimately, it's up to how you guys feel about the module as well. Like, how do you feel playing in this set in this game?
I mean, I feel like we've had agency, is that the word, or choice the whole time. I feel like there's obviously been some threads that have pulled stronger than others, but that's just how it goes. But I think a good sign that we have had agency is that when we are finished in a certain location, we always discuss where we're going to go next. It's never that apparent that we don't need to discuss it in advance.
Yeah.
We always talk it through and like, oh, well, these are our options, where are we going to go? Sometimes it's more obvious where to go and we quickly agree, but other times we had a few choices, and I think there was a couple of times where we almost went to one of two places. But I think that's just testament to the fact that it's been very open, which I think is how, like you were saying, this module's designed.
Yeah.
That it's, you can pretty much go anywhere you like and do it your own way, which I think's not easy to do from a game design perspective as well.
Yeah, and I think the module does a really good job of that. Like, it's set out for you to explore early on.
one of the coolest things about the exploration that I think that you did that wasn't in like the actual like module
is the distances. The distances.
That's another running joke.
So is the ice crystal we found in episode 1,
yeah.
and then how that was able to give us more time to find the psi crystal to like get the rewards from the Ceremors. I really like because was a Horacio that kept that with him like the whole time.
Yeah.
And like you just picked up this random thing that you just thrown in, and then you retroactively made that important because he kept asking about it.
It's a common thing that Jen and I talk about in D&D games. It's not a stone mask moment, and Jen understands what I mean by that. And this is something that I can actually give as advice for any GM that's running their game. So what the expression stone mask comes to, and I wouldn't even mind that being a regular expression. We were playing a campaign with a friend of ours, a really good friend of ours, and a good GM, and we were playing the Princes of the Apocalypse module, which is like a retelling of the Temple of Elemental Evil. And one of the things that module gives you, which is one of the things commonly that happens in D&D modules, and as a GM you sort of do anyway, is gives you rumors to give the players when they're talking about it. And the idea is that you want to make things sound bigger and more expansive than they are, but you don't want to give all the players everything right up front. So it gives you a number of rumors to be like, hey, there's this running around, and but actually it doesn't eventuate to anything. And it says that in the module, like this doesn't really eventuate into anything. So when we were playing, one of the rumors that came up was there were these figures, I think, running around in stone masks.
Yeah, people were dreaming of them and they were running around.
Right. And for Jen, and I can see why, like it was such an interesting visual that she latched onto that right away. And so anytime we were talking to people, it was, hey, I want to ask about these stone masks. Because it was such like a really odd like thing that stuck out, and she really latched onto it. And at the end of by a certain point, our GM friend had to basically tell her, look, there's nothing here. You need to drop this because I don't have anything for you, right? And it's one of those things where on the one hand, that's a lot more work to do as a GM to prep and get all that stuff prepared if you're going to make a shift like that. But I think as a GM, you need to embrace when players really latch onto something because it's important to them or it's important to their character. And so and so it might mean that you have to do a bit of improv. It might mean you have to sort of think left and sort of bring it in a weird way, or maybe even not in an optimal way as if you'd planned it. But often giving a payoff to that for the player will make them feel better about that kind of thing. And unless it's something that's like detrimental to the game around you, I think that if you can give your players that's the advice I would give GMs, And I don't blame people that GMs that are just like, well, look, there's nothing here, I can't give you anything, like I've got this prepped, right? But one of the best skills you can learn is to be able to play off your players like that and just sort of roll with it as your players are supposed to roll with you.
Yeah, and I'd go further than that and say if you actually do say to people, no, I don't have anything for that, sorry, can you drop it? I think you're just discouraging them to do it again in the future.
And that's
so
the
they'll
thing.
just become passengers.
Yeah, and I think, and again, it's such a fine line because you've got to try and wrangle these players like cats to the story that you've got here on paper, but you've also got to give them the agency when they find something important to them.
If you do want to tell players no, then the best thing to do is to use the opposite of every GM's best friend. Yes, and no, but like. You don't, like, if you want to, you should say no to them at some points. There are points where it's important to say no, but always try to have no but. Because that way they don't have that complete, like, disenchantment with, like, this thing that they were really interested in.
Yeah.
And it depends on what they're asking, too. If they're asking just some absolute bullshit that obviously cannot be done, then, that's definitely a no but.
Well, I mean, that's usually, like, more of a rules thing. This is like a story thing, like, because this was like, a bunch of people wearing stone masks. You get this idea of this, like, is this like a dream cult? Are these people like worshipping an elder god? Like, that's cool. You don't want to like completely shatter that.
Yeah, and I think to Tim's point, it discourages players from latching onto stuff like that when they could use it. When they're also like players are often looking to develop their character as well, and sometimes they'll think of it like they'll get onto a cool thing like I want to sort of integrate this into what I'm doing. So, yeah, it's one of those things that I said to Jen early on, she asked me a couple questions about things, because this was actually around a few things when it wasn't out in the open that Andy's character was an Asimar as well. And Jen was working through her head, she's like, it doesn't add up. He's got dark vision. He's got blah. He's got blah. And I like for months, like this is literally months in the lead up to that reveal. Jen was coming to me like, it doesn't make sense. There's something wrong with Andy's character. Blah. And I'm like, and without giving him the game away, because I know Andy had said to me in confidence about like, I want to keep this a secret. I want it to come out naturally, and it was a really great moment. But Jen was already like the string. But then at one point she's like, I don't want to pursue this if it's just another Stone Mask situation. And so what I reassured her was, there's no Stone's Mask situations in my campaigns. If there is something that you're going to latch onto like that, I will make something in there. And so that's an example of Tim, which was, you're right, the crystal was a throwaway thing. Because it was just something that I'm like, oh, that's cool, it's the dead body of this, and, you know, it sort of sets up the wider mystery of Icewind Dale in general. But it wasn't really related to anything. But as Tim found it important for his character to have it on him, it was just like I saw that moment and I'm like, yes, this is where we can make this useful. So yeah, I enjoyed that little interaction. So I really like this module. I think everyone should try and run it through with their players. I think it's really great. So I think we sort of went through this a little bit. Does everyone have like a favorite character moment, whether it's for their character or for someone else? It doesn't have to be a comedy moment, like a dramatic moment, or a thing that character did. Does everyone have a favorite moment?
I really, really liked the whole like sequence on that second island we stayed on, where we were all like thinking about the future, and then Carnelian like flew up, and Oriel saw him, and then that could have been really bad.
He really thought about his future.
Yeah,
right before his eyes.
Future.
No, but I think that like whole evening was just really good for everybody's character. Okay. Like I definitely think that is like up there with one of my favorite moments from the entire campaign.
Okay.
It's definitely one of the more harrowing moments as well, especially for Carnelian, because you're generally unscathed when it comes to battles and stuff. It's very rare for him to be very low health.
I think that was like the second time in the entire campaign where he went down.
Which is like why it was so much of a shock.
I can think of that's the third
Strongest.
Not the bullet, but the other things before it.
The carrion crawl. I forgot about the carrion crawls.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then that was the third time you were really, really bad.
But yeah, I think Callan doesn't go for Carnelian very often.
You can barely see him. Like
he's so short.
It's weird because I am a spellcaster. I make big noises.
You're all spellcasters.
Threat assessment is really weird in our group for exactly that reason. We can all fill similar niches.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not. Yeah, and you guys know that I'll try and play a enemy logically. So that's what I'll try and think of that. So yeah, I think that was a pretty harrowing moment, and then having actually been interacted with Oriel probably for the first time directly in some way. That's a really nice moment. And I didn't think we would get that before we went to the final, the Isle of Solstice, as it's called. So yeah, nice little moment. And that evening was pretty fun too. What about Tim? Do you got a favourite moment that you enjoyed?
I think all my moments are character related. So yes. I think with Carnelian, I think my favourite moment, well, this is from Horacio's perspective and mine. I think our favourite moment was probably when we had the DNM on the sled, when I pledged to stop the racism.
That meant a lot to Carnelian.
It wasn't deliberate, but it was still racism nonetheless.
Yes, it's working.
I think with Callan, I think with Jen and Svieta, I think there was a couple of key moments, and they tended to tie into obviously the conflicting religions and potentially shared religions. We did have a couple of D&Ms. I think I remember very early on you were very eager to learn about surgery and becoming a doctor. But I think that's all been a part of it. And that's something else that we could say about Sveta's story is she's just finding herself as well. 1 minute she wants to be a surgeon, the next minute she's ripping off fingers to put together a ritual hand because she thinks she's found another god.
It's a type of surgery.
But I just think it's good storytelling because because she's relatively young. I don't think anyone's ever asked her how old she is, but she's quite young, so she's still working things out. But yeah, I think with Svieta, I think it was a nice light-hearted moment when we swapped blankets.
Yeah.
In the pub.
Yeah.
We got drunk.
That was a fun moment.
That was fun.
And then I offered to turn into Jeffrey for you.
Yes, that was also
Got
really
weird.
And you opened up an old wound. Yep.
Hey, you seemed on board at the time.
But yeah,
I'll give you a picture.
that was a great moment. And there were many others as well, just talking about our deities and what we want, I suppose.
Well, that's the thing. Over 100 hours of content. There's a lot of movements to choose from. I was
Yeah.
just thinking things you could think of. Yeah, for sure.
I think a good moment also with Svieta and Horacio was when we were both dropped by the bullet.
Oh yeah.
And we
Oh,
were
yeah.
both down.
That art
That was a
amazing
near
as well.
TPK.
That art was perfect. That summed it up perfectly.
Yeah.
How you described how it was like, I was so inspired to draw it as well. So
I'll stop. So yeah, that was another, I think, character building moment for both of them. And in terms of Horatio and Wodun, I think some of our more recent interactions. Although, having said that, I think when I stayed at your place in Goodmead, and then that was the incident where you lost Beefcliff. Like, I was there, and he pretty much collapsed your rib cage. That was a pretty dire moment that I think sort of brought us together a little bit as well. Yeah, and I think more recently as well, we've sort of had a couple more chats, and grown a little bit closer, I suppose, in general more recently. Because I think for a long time, I don't know, maybe I've just blacked out all my memories of Wodun, but I don't know why I do that, because I love him. But I think for a while, Horatio and Wodun didn't have a lot of one-on-one stuff. But I think recently, and it might just be that everyone's talking to each other more, but I think certainly the two of them have had a few more chats recently, and I think it's been good.
Well, what about Andy? Do you have a favorite or favorites, characters, or story moment, or anything like that?
I think my favourite moment for Wodun was the one that you mentioned with the reveal of his Aasimar blood.
I was pretty proud of that writing.
Yeah, I think when I first came up with it, I didn't specifically mention that he's Aasimar, because apparently, from reading them, they don't look too different to humans.
Yep.
And so I kind of was just going to not mention it unless it came out. And then I was thinking of ways to have it come out, because it had been such a long time and just nobody ever.
Jen, I'll tell you, behind the scenes, Jen was getting real close. She was getting there.
Yeah, but it just went on for such a long time. I was like, I really got to make this good.
Yeah. The actual reveal in the cabin with the explosion and the resistance was really good.
And I didn't know either, because I was just doing Wodun things and being because he's quite attached to Svieta, and so he was just going to kind of he just didn't want her to be by herself in that.
Yeah.
And then you I think did Sveta's damage first, maybe, I can't remember, but you were you take this much radiant damage, and I was like, did he just fucking say radiant damage? I'm looking at my character sheet, and it was only at that point that I was like, holy shit, this isn't going to kill me.
Yeah.
I was this is going to be when it comes out. I was shaking because I didn't want to fuck it up so
That was
bad.
such a good reveal, though. Yeah.
Perfect.
I couldn't have that moment couldn't have happened any better, I reckon.
Yeah. I think it came out at the right time.
But yeah, I really like the Wodun Svieta relationship, because he's such a himbo, and Sveta's kind of this grungy solo person who's trying new things to discover religion and dabbling in good and evil and that sort of thing, and Wodun's kind of wants to come along and be part of that to so that he's just kind of intrigued by it and be oh cool, yeah, what are we doing now? Oh yeah, let's desecrate something. Yeah.
There's a very good friendship there that is Wodun up for anything, Svieta trying to discover herself, and Wodun just I want to be there with you while you discover yourself. I really like it.
It's someone who is extremely impressionable, which is Svieta, with someone who's just someone that's wills people to do stuff.
Like a hype man.
Yeah, in a way,
man.
but also wants to be there as well.
Super supportive, yeah.
Yeah.
Wants to be part of it.
Yeah. I definitely like that that reveal of the Asima blood. I think that was really, really good because it came out just at the right moment. It'd been so long. And as I said, like, Jen had sort of like would narrow down that by that point, but like if you listen to it from start to finish, like that's such a long, slow game you played up to that point to not reveal it. So I really liked it. Yeah.
So
I
many
wasn't trying to
hints.
hide it. I just wasn't going to mention it.
No, you told me not to specifically mention or draw to it. But
Yeah,
just
yeah.
let it come out naturally, which I think it did. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And Jen, favorite moment? I think you talked a little bit about one earlier, but yeah.
I did.
Yeah, about the Wodun backstory with the kids. But do you have anything else that strikes you as a favorite moment?
I think any moment that we have on sleds or fireside chats, I really enjoy. Whether it's like Svieta with any of the other characters or just like listening the interactions that Carnelian and Horacio would have together. I think the one that's really stuck with me a lot is it's actually Dog Cliff. Because I think I don't think I've laughed that hard in D&D ever before.
That was definitely another favourite moment of mine.
It was so unexpected, and I think I go back to it sometimes. Not like all the time. Like I need like a pick me up, but I just like think about it from time to time. Just like what a ridiculous voice. what a wonderful moment. I also. I think the relationships that Svieta has with each of the characters too, I quite like. With like just being like partners in crime with Wodun, especially with like finding out that he needs blood for Beefcliff. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. Like this is great. And then it was apparently bad because I got ray of enfeeblement on me.
Hey, I was at the height of my religious fervour.
Yeah.
It was an unfortunate timing.
And also like
Just fervor.
He was in it with both feet for a
10
while.
minutes away from a crusade.
Pretty much. He would have. But that was his crusade. Weakening Svieta mid job.
As like I think from episode 2 onwards, just Svieta and Horacio having like sort of a mentor-mentee kind of relationship. He's like, I'll show you everything. I'm like, yeah, I'm so on board. Like Sveta's really on board with just like anything he has to say. And takes to heart like a lot of his teachings. I think with Carnelian, she doesn't have a very strong relationship with. She still doesn't know about your crusade to make sure like kobolds are accepted and loved, because she's still quite confused about why you don't like halflings. Gnomes. She's like, I'm so confused. You're both small.
You never got around to asking.
I know, there's never really been a proper chance.
There is a reason.
But I think our love for animals has always been there, especially now that Chocky's in the picture.
The cuddle pile.
Yeah. And I think the most memorable is probably when my character did die.
Yes.
But that's not my favourite. My favourite is...
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Depends on,
My favourite is definitely Dogcliff. And the swapping of blankets.
I remember with the death one, I hadn't intended on... Like, I intended to make that the cliffhanger because I was like, oh shit, this is going to be a great cliffhanger. And then, due to a variety of circumstances, we didn't record for like 2 months. I think it was.
It was around Christmas time. So I think people
someone
were
got
either
COVID.
away... Oh,
Someone got COVID.
I did get COVID.
Someone else may have.
There was at
You
least
got
a
COVID?
month gap.
I've had it.
It was like
once.
in January I got
At
COVID.
least once.
It was definitely like... There was definitely like a month gap at least, which I hadn't intended. And Jen was just on this like, is my character dead or alive for a month? And I was like,
That's right.
I feel so bad for leaving you on this cliffhanger, but that was the best place to leave it. So yeah, it was definitely a memorable moment. Potential character deaths. For me, you guys have all said a lot of like my favourite moments. My favourite moments are a lot of the role play that you guys do between yourselves, with me, with characters. There's definitely some moments that I was really proud of, like my own improv, for example, to be able to give you guys sort of the stepping stones that you have to tell your story. I think if I need to like then pull back from that and think of some of my favorite like moments that I've done as a GM, I do have a couple. Like, I obviously like the story that I told at the very start, like episode 1, to set the mood of Icewind Dale. That story around the campfire of that creature that was, like,
That's right.
stalking them. I really enjoy, because I wrote that. That's just from me, right? I wanted to do something that sets the mood. Recently, I think one of my favorite things was that interaction between Mishan and Horacio, where she sat you down, like, and talked to you about, like, Horacio's growth and, like, his questions about his deity. And I went into this, like, whole, like, sort of long speech about you don't need to be part of the establishment. You need to, like, set your own destiny and be yourself. I really liked, like, sounds really selfish, but I really liked that sort of thing that I got to say to you. Because I knew that. Well, I knew that you'd talk to me about, like, what you wanted to do with your character, and you were sort of unsure about which way you were going to take it. At one point, I think you confided that you were like, can we change character? I don't feel like I've got an arc that I'm working towards. I don't know how long I've got. And I'm like, well, no, I've got something for you then. Like, let's do this. So I thought that was a really... I liked that sort of speech, I guess.
That was post banishment, I think.
Yes. No, yeah, before pre-banishment. Like, the episode before the banish.
Oh,
It was just pre-banish.
Were you wanting to swap off of Horacio?
I don't think I ever planned to step away from him, but there was a period where I didn't know what he was doing, so I was just weighing up my options.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So I guess that's... I have a couple moments like that, and I definitely love some of the character improv moments that we had as well, like seeing you guys sort of walk around. Like, I also really liked the moment with Wodun and Shanda, that when you approached him in his tent and he was drunk and, like...
That was a good scene.
Yeah, that was really good. And then, like, Wodun was, like, always this kind of, like, when I say suckered, like, he was always on Shanda's side, and from a very pure point of view, we weren't hiding it, but it could come off as, like, a bit dubious to any other character that was doing that, right? Like, it would come off as a bit duplicitous, but Wodun's just the way it is. And Shanda had just been shattered from all of you outing him as like part of some of the stuff that he's done. And that moment, I think I really liked that interaction between... And also, there was Carnelian there as well, that was, like, adding to this whole fuel of, oh, the Zentarium is this, and this is a bit... Yeah, so there was, like, a really nice little dynamic in there, and that tied that up, which I didn't really have a plan for until that moment. So I think
that was good.
That was some of my favourites.
So one of his heroes fall.
Exactly.
I like that you went there purely to acquire a shield. And we walked out of there with that man's shield.
He did. He did get what he wanted in the end. All right, final thing before we get to the rest of this recording. And this doesn't have to be a long one, but it could be a long discussion. Depends up to you. Favorite NPCs. Favorite NPCs of the pod, starting with Zimma.
I like Mishan.
Yep.
I really like
Mishan.
Sorry, I like Mishan because she sounds like a cleric who's been out here doing cleric work, D&D cleric work for a long time. She definitely feels like somebody who's been here and been helping people for a long time. She does sound like a wise character.
Okay.
And I feel like you just I feel like that one's one that you just played very on point.
Okay.
I really like Angajuk.
Angajuk, yeah.
Angajuk, and I don't know if Angajuk has is supposed to have a personality.
No, he doesn't.
But he's been great, and I really appreciate that he tail slapped that shark for us.
Yeah. Gave him the whip.
He has a couple things that he knows and sort of things you play around with, but there's not an extensive thing. So
I've really appreciated having the fact that he's not just a boat.
Yeah. Yeah, trying to make
and that we've had to communicate with him, and we're okay, please, we have to work around his routine. We have to take into account that he is a a thinking, living creature.
Okay, Angajuk. How about Tim? Favorite NPCs or NPC?
Do I state the obvious?
Listen, you don't have to play into what I like, but you can. What are you as Tim?
Well,
player.
I feel like I have no choice because Zimma's pretty much said two of my favourites as well. Like I think with Mishan, like I think
You can say
because
the
from
same
my
things.
perspective, like Mishan, I think some of Horacio's best interactions with an NPC were with Mishan, because she's a pivotal figure in his story. You know, being in the Dale.
Did you expect Mishan to be such a pivotal figure in your story?
Yes and no. Okay. It made sense that she was, put it that way, because she, I think, was probably Horacio's, I wouldn't call it like a friend, but first close contact in the Dale.
Yeah, I feel like she also turned into a bit of a mentor by the end as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though you weren't of the same... That's what I really like about D&D. Everyone knows that there are gods, and there are multiple gods. It's a pantheon. She's not a cleric of Kalemvor, but she can still be your mentor as a religious person.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of growing with your deity and what do you want from it.
Yeah, your spiritual journey. Yeah.
Yeah, spiritual journey is a good way to put it. So certainly she's the favourite.
Okay.
I'm gonna let someone else say it.
No, you can. None of you can say the one I'm thinking of, but I'm very interested in what you personally. It could all be the same. It could all be Mishan, but yeah.
All right. Well, I'll go down the path of one of them.
Yeah.
Sheen.
Sheen,
the doctor.
The cleric of Ubok.
Yes. that there's another favourite scene of mine actually. That whole East Haven General.
Oh, in the hospital. Yeah. Okay.
I was going to mention that in my favourite moments once you finished, because you reminded me of it by saying something or other, but like that, I thought
Some
of that moment
people
too.
think it's pronounced Sean, but they're wrong.
that is in there entirely for your brother.
Yeah, I think in terms of like what Jen was saying, what's made me laugh the most, I think your performance as Sheen for that whole that was so good.
All right, thank you.
That's my another favourite.
Oh, when Wodun's just like start walking, he's like, "We're walking as we speak."
And then he trailed off at the end.
Yeah.
He walked off from the door and he was still talking.
Yes, you closed the door on him and he was still talking.
Yeah.
That was one of my favourite moments as well.
I have two favourite NPCs that aren't the obvious.
Do you want to go before Andy, or
If that's okay.
Mine have been said. I think mine was Mishan and I didn't remember his name, but yeah, the hospital
Sheen.
guy.
So before I get to Jen, then,
Yeah.
was there a reason different to what the other guys said about those two characters that you liked?
No, well, I agree with Zimma that the tone and the mood for Mishan is spot on. Like, she's not over the top. She's just she's firm, but firm and wise. But you can have a bit of fun with her. As a player, you can I've fucked with her a little bit. And yeah, I just really like that hospital interaction as well. I thought that was
really
good from everybody, and everybody in the cast was involved in that. We were all in that conversation.
No, the nurse, it was
Brilliant performance, already.
that episode I knew was going to be, while we were recording, that it was going to be a funny one when we got to the door and there was the bust. Because I had decided by that point I was going to make it an Ubok focus one, because we made so many jokes about Ubok, and I was just like, this bust is all you see, you must touch the bust to get inside.
We're all at the same time just oh.
And then the immortal line though, one of the best lines I think of the pod is "In Bust We Must," which was come from Andy.
Yep.
It was a fantastic little amen to a prayer. I love that, by the way. I use that on my Twitch. I got a little an icon that's in "Bust We Must."
Oh, true.
I think that's a great line too. And we've mis-said it in "Bust We Trust," in "Bust We Must." Equally good. Yeah. All right. Well, Jen, you had said you had a couple of NPCs.
Yeah, only if there's no one else that Andy has.
Those are my favourites, I reckon.
I like. One of them is Drodovax.
Yep. Okay.
The little
The
Ceramorphs.
Ceramorph. Yep.
Yeah, only because it really spun about what we were expecting, because we were downed by the carrion crawlers and the bullet to get to this massive ship that was down in the mountains, and then this flesh beast came out, And then all of a sudden, these like little gnome tentacle guys are just like, "Hey, we need your help." And they were just like really the way you voiced them and the plight that
Actually,
they
yeah,
had.
the voice was good.
Yeah, and just what they had to say. It wasn't as all what I was expecting that whole scene to be, and those characters like really helped, and the way you like acted them out was really good.
Thank you.
The other one is just a personal favorite. Is just Callan.
Yes.
And his
Qual.
moment.
Yes, he was good too.
His moment with
I'd add him.
yeah,
I'd
with
add
Horatio, just like everyone else is sleeping, and they're just like, "Do you want to talk about boys?"
Shit, I do remember that, yeah.
So,
Callan.
it's not. I can't remember her name, but the ale baroness,
Lady Musgart.
Musgart.
Yeah.
I really like. I think a lot of that might more be like. I can't tell how much of it's you and how much of it's like the module, but I really think that she's like a really like clever character. Like very like. Oh, I could just play this both ways. Go on, go kill the guy I don't like.
Yeah.
She has plausible deniability too, so
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah,
Just
she's
set the adventurers on her political enemy.
Another one I really liked actually in the castle was that guy that Horatio and I spoke to. Horatio and Wodun, I should say. Spoke to in the hallway for like ages. He had that like New York or Boston accent or something, and he gave us like incredible amounts of information and then helped us fight. He was a champ.
Who was that? I can't remember the name I gave.
was like-
Oh, was he the one that enlarged himself to
Yeah.
like save you, and then you just walked over his body to
No,
have a dance
that
with
was
the
someone
scarecrows?
that was a different guy.
Oh man.
But yeah, he died because he was fighting on one of the towers, and that was a tower that got wiped out. Yeah, I remember. I remember you guys saying, "Oh, I hope he survives," and he didn't.
So many Duragar died in that
Yes,
fight.
that's true.
I mean, bad.
It was a Duragar on Duragar fight for the most part.
I'm glad you said Callan, Jen, because by the end of that, like we had Callan with the, you want to talk about boys, like at the start, and I thought I loved that interaction because like. Not Tim, but Horatio was clearly uncomfortable. I think you made that delineation of like, I don't know if I really want to talk to you, and this is a bit of an awkward conversation I'm having, and I'm not your friend necessarily. My friends are sleeping. But like, it was just that like, I got to deal with that. And then there was that conversation I thought was really fun. But then by the end, like when you were having those problems with fighting Svieta because she got cursed or whatever, or she got...
Yeah, I got cursed to...
Short-term madness, I think it was, that you got afflicted by. You're just like, the Quarks is coming to save you. It's like, I'm coming.
Yeah, he referred to himself as the
Quarks. Yeah, I like giving him a nickname by the end. So yeah, and there was a D&M between him and Horatio. I was like, I really appreciate you guys calling me your friends. I like that one.
it was Jonkin Jr.
Jonkin.
Just by the way.
Jonkin
Junior.
That's right.
He's the second Jonkin.
Rest in peace, Jonkin. Well, I mean, again, this is the byproduct of me going last. For my favorite NPCs, obviously, a personal favorite is any one of the Skeens. So whether you've got the original flavor or the Sheen one.
No NPC list would be complete.
Not without it, yeah. I mean, just because personally I like doing that voice. I try to get into it, and it's just one of the more distinct ones I can do.
It definitely brings out your natural humour.
Oh, thank you.
I think. Because it sort of gives you like freedom to do not dumb shit, but just to muck around.
To muck around.
Have fun with it.
I know what
I'm
you
trying to
mean.
say.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I enjoy playing that character because he is a little bit silly, and he also likes to mess with you guys a bit, like both of them kind of do. And
Sort of.
Sort of, yeah. Sort of. So I enjoy playing them. I also enjoyed recently doing the Hadriel, the angel that talked to Horatio. I know that hasn't been with anyone else yet necessarily, but I was just editing that episode on Monday, and I was like, that interaction, like that back and forth, I really enjoyed playing because it plays a character that is almost in the position that I'm in, right? Where it's like they're powerful enough / non-human enough to be looking at this as like, he could look at it as like you're beneath him, but the way he actually perceives it is as an equal. Because he actually, if you listen to that conversation, he doesn't treat you like a lowly mortal or anything like that. It was like very deliberately trying to talk on your level, And I think I liked that character that could switch that on.
Yeah, and it helped me as a player. It helped me sort of focus, I think, Horatio's direction a lot. sort of really solidified, I think. His purpose was, quote-unquote, just.
Yeah.
For him, at least.
Yeah. So I liked that one. I also like every child in Icewind Dale is basically the same. They're all a newspaper boy.
Chimney
Fucking
sweep.
chimney sweep.
Oliver Twist brats.
Yeah.
Oliver Twist brats.
I don't know if you caught it, but when I was playing Valine, like you guys were like, why do you know so much about me? And one of the comments I made was like, oh, there's a surprising number of children in Icewind Dale that have these weird interactions with you guys as player. That's what you got a lot of information from. So, you guys are going to be really happy. I'm not going to look for a segue. I'm just going to start, and then we're going to go.
Are you feeling okay?
No.
Something happened. You love your segues.
Speaking of casual conversation, let's carry on.
You are not allowed to segue. All right. I've told you this before.
Well, hey there, fellow nerds and ne'er-do-wells. My name's AJ, and let me introduce you to the Adventurers Anonymous podcast, the home of improvised fantasy, fuck nuggetry. Come join us week by week as 6 dangerously codependent dipshits sip cocktails, play Dungeons and Dragons, and seek a glorious death. Now, all adventures need a cast, and ours is no exception. Our motley crew of abject depravity includes a failed crocoborn sorcerer turned children's party entertainer, a dirty old human priest on the brink of the afterlife, a disgraced half-orc police officer trying to turn his life around, a sassy blue tiefling who can talk to animals, and a retired gnome soldier suffering from PTSD. Warning! The Adventurers Anonymous podcast is mostly improvised and entirely inappropriate. Listener discretion is advised. The views expressed in this podcast may or may not affect you or anyone at any time. If in doubt, do not operate heavy machinery and avoid sex with animals where possible. Unauthorized copying, public performance, broadcasting, hiring, or rental of this podcast is highly likely and in most cases encouraged. If in doubt, always consult your local rabbi. So, if you like your plotline thin and crispy and your language to be saltier than a sailor's beard, welcome aboard. A new episode every Friday.